A lot of people have, since the release of one of the best films, miniseries, however you want to call it, put onto Netflix or put out for mass consumption when they see us, it has been talked about pretty much at this point, probably globally. It has pretty much made its rounds and it's still being talked about 2 weeks later, which I love because it was that good. Like, y'all saw the review. Everyone pretty much liked what they saw. Some people, of course, said they couldn't watch it or they couldn't get past certain parts. And I believe that if you feel that way about that, then I think that the production, the project did its job, because I think that's how it was supposed to be displayed. Now, to talk about one of the major pieces of this whole situation, and that's Linda Fairstein. And this is pretty much how she looks now. And she looks just as hideous on the outside as she is on the inside. And she is one of the intricate pieces of the puzzle as to why we are even having the discussion of the Central Park Five today. Now, many people did not know the role she played in this, or really know who she was, until this miniseries got put onto Netflix, and that's how many of us got introduced to who she was. Now, of course, you know she was played by Felicity Huffman. Imagine that, a criminal playing a criminal. I think I even said that in my review. But because Linda Fairstein, I don't care how you spin it, is a criminal. What she did was very criminal, and she knows that. She can deflect all she wants, but she is a criminal from a long line of people in her profession. But she was the sex prosecutor for the case back then. That basically means she dealt with any type of sex crime, sexual assault, rape, however you want to put it. You know, that was her job. And if y'all saw the miniseries, she basically said that every black boy or black person who was a male who was in the park that night is a suspect. Those were her words in a nutshell. If you watch the miniseries, those were her words, and I'm almost certain those were her words back then. And she probably said a whole lot more than that. She kept calling them thugs and all types of stuff, and we know what that's code speak for. Lee Atwater has taught us. And she had a hard on. No, she couldn't. She got wet between the legs to want to go after these black boys just because they fit the description. You know, every time they use that term, fit the description, they're always talking about a black male of some sort, no matter if they're a child or if they are older, like in grown adult years. And she ran with this for years, and she knew she was wrong. If you watch the miniseries, the DNA exonerated them. They should not have gone to jail just based off of that alone. But she kept telling them to keep going until they were actually found guilty, because she didn't want to see herself as a loser in this particular case. She didn't want to lose and then have her reputation be tarnished back then. Although it's being tarnished now, thanks to this miniseries, pretty much exposing her for the bitch that she is. And she looks it even right here. And after those boys went to jail for all those years, she came out with a bunch of crime novels. A lot of them. She was going to make sure she was going to capitalize on what she saw was probably one of the biggest cases of her career. And that's what she did. Made a ton of money. She probably made more money off of those books than she ever did as a sexual prosecutor. Years go on, years go by, and, you know, the boys get exonerated, and we still don't know who Linda Fairstein is, because that was back at the time when social media was about to be on the rise. So we still didn't know who she was. The only ones who knew who Linda Fairstein were the ones who were involved with the case. But now that we come out with this miniseries, now we know who she is. And she is nothing more than a lying ass creature. And she looks every bit like something that came out of a swamp. or in her case, because she was in New York, anything that came out of a sewer. So recently, because of all the stuff that's been happening, and everything being unearthed about her, people have drawn up a lot of petitions to get her cases reopened. And I wouldn't be upset about that, because if she did this with one case, imagine what she's done with others. They've even drawn up petitions to have her publishers drop her from, the books that she has been writing, which, by the way, was a success, because I think she used one publishing company and they have dropped her. Like, the pressure was on and they have dropped her, which is a good thing. But more needs to happen to her. Like, she needs to lose everything. She is one of the main reasons why these boys went to jail all those years and lost their youth. We're talking about 14, 15, 16-year-old boys who lost their youth, and when they got out of jail, they were in their 20s. Like, they lost everything. The court of public opinion already made up in their mind what they were, and I'm sure she was laughing about that. They had trouble getting employment, which I'm sure if she knew about, she would be happy about that. All she saw was this white woman who got raped and just automatically went with the trope that black boys or black men were these hypersexual beings who could not control their sexual urges. All the while, the actual rapist, who later came out and confessed and said that he was the one who did it, was running around and raping other people all within that time frame. And they could have easily got him, and this case would have been dropped immediately. But no, she wasn't looking for the actual rapist. She just wanted to get those guys because they were there. And they were nowhere near where the woman who got raped. They were nowhere near where it happened. That guy acted alone by himself. If it wasn't for his confession, Corey Wise would probably still be in jail. And those other ones who were out of jail, they would have still been held down by those false convictions. Ironically, the guy who did the brutal rape is the one that saved them at the same time. I guess he just developed a level of conscience. If it was left up to Linda Fairstein, she probably would have tried to find a way to pay him off so they would not have to so he wouldn't have to confess to keep them there. But if you watch the movie, they kept saying, well, that doesn't mean that they didn't do it. That just means that was a sixth person that slipped through the cracks. Like, they were just determined to let it be where they just knew in their mind that they were guilty because of the confession, but it was coerced, and they kept trying to say that it wasn't. Like I said in the review, everything about that investigation was so messed up. Everything from top to bottom and everywhere in between. And Linda Fairstein is like public enemy number one, and she should be. When I say something about that whole historical white bitch, Linda Fairstein is a prime example of that. You gave her a little position of power and she abused the hell out of it. That pretty much lets you know that Linda Fairstein is a staunch racist who hates black men. In that case, she hates black males because they were just boys at the time. And I wish that the mainstream media would stop saying that they were black men when they went to jail. They know they were boys. But that also goes back to the trope, that dialogue that they see black boys as black men. Look at how they described Tamir Rice. He was only 12 years old when he was murdered, but they said they thought he was 18. Really? You saw this baby-faced little boy and thought he was 18. And even if he was, I would just ask for some ID just to clarify, because I look at his face and I said, that's not the face of an 18-year-old. That is a kid. But it's always a thing where they have to age black males to make them appear older than what they are. They do it all the time, especially when they're kids. But I can't stand Linda Fairstein. She deserves any and all that's coming her way and a whole lot more. And it'll be well deserved. And when it does happen to her, you already know what I'm about to do. And I wouldn't shed not one single solitary tear from my eye. I'm glad that people now have been exposed to the real her. And that's why she's upset. The reason Linda Fairstein is upset about this whole thing is not because of, well, actually, I'll take that back. It is because people have now found out who she truly is. She was probably expecting this to stay buried for as long as possible, but this series has exposed her. She even tried to come at Ava DuVernay for even doing it. So you're mad and upset because now we know what hides beneath the surface. Actually, what we see on the surface, quite honestly, as well. But yeah, I would like to know what other cases she has worked on, because if she botched that case, she will botch any case, especially when it deals with black boys, black men. Like, go back and watch part 1 of that miniseries. She let it be known what tip she was on when all of that was going down. But that's pretty much all I have as it pertains to this hideous creature that's on your screen right now. Y'all let me know what you think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I will talk to you in the next one.